If you've been following the AI space at all, you've probably seen this new acronym floating around everywhere, MCP. It stands for Model Context Protocol, and let me tell you, it is quietly becoming one of the most critical pieces of the entire AI puzzle. So what is it really, and why is it suddenly everywhere? Let's get into it. You hear this phrase a lot, the USB-C for AI, and honestly, it's the perfect way to think about it. You remember the mess of cables we used to have, right? Well, just like USB-C gave us one standard plug for all our gadgets, MCSC is creating one single standard way for AI models to connect to all the world's data and tools. The goal here? To finally end the absolute chaos of building custom connections for everything. And this right here is the dream. This is what MCP makes possible. A single app, could be a chatbot, could be your coding software, can now seamlessly plug into any number of different tools or databases using just one clean standard protocol. It's neat, it's scalable, and it is a million miles away from the tangled mess we had before. But to really appreciate just how big a deal this is, we first have to understand the problem. So let's rewind the clock a bit and look at the world before MCP. And honestly, the only way to describe it is a giant integration mess. So before the standard existed, if a developer wanted their AI agent to talk to an outside tool, say a Salesforce database or some internal company API, they had to write unique custom code for every single connection. Each tool had its own API, its own way of logging in, its own data format. It created this tangled web of brittle one-off connections that were an absolute nightmare to build and an even bigger headache to maintain. And this wasn't just some inconvenience for developers. These custom jobs had serious consequences. You couldn't just reuse a tool you'd built for one AI project in another one. This made it incredibly hard to scale up what an agent could actually do. And the end result? Well, you just got dumber, lower quality AI. Simple as that. And don't just take my word for it. Developers were feeling this pain in a very real way. I love this quote from a comment on Hacker News. It just perfectly captures that frustration. It really shows you how desperately a universal, well-documented solution was needed. Okay, so that was the problem, a total mess. Now for the solution. This is where the Model Context Protocol comes in, and it is such an elegant answer to all of that chaos. Now, here's the most important thing you need to get about MCP. It is not a tool. It's not a framework. It's a protocol. Just like HTTP is the set of rules for how web browsers and servers talk to each other, MCP is a single, open set of rules for how any AI app can talk to any external tool. It's the common language everybody can finally agree to speak. The way it works is actually pretty simple. It's built on three basic parts. First, you've got the host. That's the AI app you're actually using. Inside that host, there's an MCP client that handles all the connections. And what does it connect to? It connects to MCP servers. And you can just think of each server as a dedicated adapter or a plug that makes one specific tool available to the AI in that standard universal format. So the change is just massive. You go from manually wiring every single API, which creates these fragile platform-specific systems, to a world of standardized, reusable tools. With a common language, the whole ecosystem just becomes modular and interoperable. It's way easier to scale, and it's much more secure. It's a fundamental shift in how we build AI. And what happens when you have an idea this simple and this powerful? Well, it completely unlocked a brand new ecosystem for AI tools and integrations. It has led to this just incredible explosion of innovation. And this wasn't some niche thing that stayed in a research lab. Oh no, the idea of a universal connector was so needed that it led to massive industry-wide adoption like almost immediately. All the biggest names in tech jumped on board. I mean, it felt like it happened overnight. You had the CEOs of both Google and OpenAI publicly tweeting their support for MCHP in their biggest products. When you see two major rivals agree on a technical standard like that, you know something huge is going on. And it didn't stop there. Microsoft jumped in, integrating MCP into its Copilot studio. Amazon announced support for it in AWS. In just a few months, MCP went from being a proposal to being a foundational, industry-wide standard. It was wild. But what's really, really cool to me is that this isn't just about the tech giants. A whole community of developers has built literally thousands of these MCP servers. There are unofficial marketplaces now, and they are filled with connectors for everything you can imagine, from creative tools like Figma and Blender to super specialized databases and cloud platforms. Okay, so far, it all sounds amazing, right? A universal standard, a booming ecosystem, what could possibly go wrong? Well, like with any powerful new technology, there are real risks we need to talk about. The very thing that makes MCP so great, its openness, also creates some brand new security challenges. Let's go right back to our USB-C analogy. A good cable is fantastic, but we've all heard the horror stories about those cheap, knockoff cables that can literally fry your devices. The exact same idea applies here. A badly built or even a malicious MCC server can cause a whole lot of damage. And that's why security is now a huge concern. Security experts are now worried about a few new types of threats. For instance, there's something called tool name conflicts, where a malicious server could pretend to be a legitimate one, tricking your AI and hijacking its requests. And with so many of these servers coming from community marketplaces, installer spoofing is a real risk, where a fake installer could hide malware on your machine. All of this leads to a new and really necessary mindset. As security expert Christopher Sandoval says, we can't just blindly trust these connections. Just because a tool is available through MCP doesn't automatically mean it's safe. Every single connection has to be treated with a healthy dose of suspicion. So, with all that in mind, where does that leave us? Let's wrap this up by looking at where MCP is today and what its future is starting to look like as it gets more and more mature. This data from a recent developer conference is really interesting. Check this out. Right now, half of all MCP usage is for internal tools. Companies just connecting AI to their own private systems. Only a tiny 2% is for public, external-facing apps. That tells you everything you need to know. We are still in the very, very early days of this revolution. But the direction of travel is crystal clear. The AI industry is moving past just doing simple experiments. The focus now is on using MCP as the foundation to build real, production-ready systems that are trustworthy, that can scale, and that are truly modular. And that really brings us to the final big question. The standard is here. It works. It's been adopted by everyone. The technical problem of connecting AI to the world is pretty much solved. But the next challenge, and maybe the much harder one, is a social one. Can we, as a community, build out this new ecosystem in a way that is secure, reliable, and ultimately trustworthy? That is the question that's going to define the entire next chapter of AI.